Well, James and I just got back from seeing Thor Ragnarok, and we had a wonderful time. And now we're going to break it down. We're going to try to avoid spoilers in this, but if it was in the previews or in the material that they were posting, then it's fair game. And so we'll try to keep it good. But anyway, let's start off with our biases. James?
All right, biases. Yeah, biggest thing with me for a movie is, does it deliver what it promises? And if you can do that, deliver what you promised, and give me a fun ride, then I'm happy.
Yep. And for me, my bias is that I love Norse mythology, and I read Thor comics. In fact, my dad got me Thor comics to help me fit in, and help me not to take literature quite as seriously as I did. But also, Thor is a part of our romantic journey, because the first thing that this very sweet man did, our first conversation, was him coming up to me at the library table where I worked and saying, "Hey, how about the Avengers? Do you know they're making a movie? And they're making a Thor movie." Yes, he opened our friendship relationship with asking me about Thor.
Not sure what I was thinking, but it worked.
Lucky for him, it's like the song of my people. Hello. And we spent a lot of time talking about that. And then when we got engaged, the first movie that we went to see together after he got back from his internship was Thor. So they're just very special movies for us, and a lot of love there. Anyway, enough sentimentality and reminiscing here. Let's get into the analysis. What did you think overall, sweetheart?
All right, so overall, the movie was fantastic. It delivered what it promised. Lots of fun, and just overall really well put together. It's a wild ride, but overall very fun.
It is a lot of fun. The pacing was pretty intense, and as far as the cuts go, I would actually say that the shakiest part of the movie is the very beginning, where you are first introduced to all of our main characters, and there's a cameo that is a little bit abrupt, but it's designed to be abrupt. And once you get used to how this movie goes through, and that it's a little bit like, okay, you catch on, and it works just fine. And it was a lot of fun. It was very much a ride. It's a hard movie to quantify. A lot of people have been saying this is a comedy. I would say it is a comedy as long as you remember that it is also an action superhero movie. There are funny moments, but there were also some quiet moments, too.
Yes, there were.
My sweetie got choked up. It was sweet. So, let's see. Without giving away spoilers, what did you think of the plot overall?
Overall, the plot, they're basically a very certain. Hi.
Hey, Milana.
Yeah, there are certain stories. Man versus man, man versus beast, man versus nature. This movie did all of those and a little bit extra. They have story arcs for so many characters, but it feels like you're in a very crowded party, that everybody is in there. You have just enough room to kind of mingle, but if they added in one more thing, it would be too much.
And I know the one more thing they could add.
Of course.
Anyway, yeah, I wanted to spend time with all the characters. To me, everyone felt very, very real. And it's like, Fenrir was in this. I'm like, gigantic darling puppy. Oh, and they didn't call him Fenrir, and I can't remember from the comics.
Fenrir?
I don't recall offhand, but he's Fenrir from mythology.
Wasn't Frankenfurter, I know that.
No. Anyway, I was happy to see him. I wish I could have seen more of him, but that's okay. So, trying to think. I guess just tackling it. One of the best surprises in it was Jeff Goldblum.
Yes.
And he was just delightful, in a creepy, weird. But you guys know how I feel about villains. I love villains. I love crazy people. I love interest, as long as they're interesting. If I feel that I can sit down and have a fascinating conversation with you, then I'm probably gonna like you. If you are boring, no. Well, unless you're hurt, and then I'll probably talk to you. But anyway, it's a little inconsistent. But anyway, Jeff Goldblum's character, he really steals. He steals the show when he is on there, and that is. he's so menacing and
Yes, I think they may have put that in his contract that he has to be the center of attention in every scene that includes him.
I think he just managed to do it. It's like, because on the one hand, you know, I know he's a good actor, please don't get me wrong, but how is he going to fit in this? And it's funny because I remember when I watched Jurassic Park, I was kind of afraid of Ian Malcolm initially because of that laugh in the helicopter scene. He's just kind of, okay, you're gonna hurt me if I see you, aren't you? And then this character is just taking this like all the way up here, and he's just very colorful. I wouldn't call him the antagonist though. I mean, he is insane. He's a monster, but he's interesting.
He's trying to think. Structure-wise in the story, he sort of fits the same structure as like Jabba the Hutt in Phantom Menace. Is that you're there for a portion of the movie, you remember it, but then you move on because the rest of the story is elsewhere.
Actually, no. Let's not do Phantom Menace. I would argue Return of the Jedi, Jabba the Hutt's palace. Never mind. It's okay.
Yeah, we can debate on that later.
We won't argue on this one.
Yeah.
We'll do that one in private later.
Yep. Oh, hi.
The relationship between Thor and Mjolnir, as you know from the previews, Mjolnir is shattered. And I really like how at the beginning it's kind of like a boy and his hammer, and it's this sweet, it's almost sweet watching his relationship with his hammer. You're like, it really hurts him when it's destroyed, and I felt bad for him. Like, I've never felt so bad for anyone losing a weapon quite like that.
Yeah.
So it was kind of cool. It's like, you know, poor Mjolnir. But now, girls, stop that. Anyway.
Yes, anyway.
Let's see. Do you have any thoughts on Mjolnir you want to add?
Just that Oh, well.
You have your own.
Of course, granted on the shirt, and yes, I do have a copy of my own. But yeah, Mjolnir, I like what they did with it. They have an arc that it does sort of tie back to the first movie, and it does tie back together very well when everything is said and done.
Yeah.
And it really
and connects to some of the previous movies as well, and the Avengers.
Yes, but yeah, definitely. Yep, one Easter egg that it ties back to the original comics. I won't spoil it here, but
no, there's several Easter eggs throughout. If you've read,
there are several of them. Right, but the one I'm thinking of, if you've read the original comics, especially the early Thor comics, then you're definitely going to be able to see this one. It's not hidden as well as you think, but it's there, and I really appreciated the fact that they threw that little touch in there.
Yeah, and as far as what James was saying about character arcs, I really liked it. Some of the character arcs are very obvious, some of them are more subtle.
Right.
I really like Banner Hulk's arc. It's handled in a very quiet way, which you wouldn't expect for this character. And it was when we were thinking like, oh my goodness, something important happened here. And this movie, there's a lot of things that happen that will have far-ranging implications for the rest of the series. For the Infinity War, it moves it forward. So that was great. Yeah, and you know, as far as Hulk talking, I didn't have a problem. He's talked before in the comics, and I believe in the animated series and such like that.
Yeah, and even in the first Avengers movie,
Hulk
had a few lines in there. Some of them more famous than others, but
puny gods being the most.
Exactly. It's not like he just didn't talk for movies and movies, and then all of a sudden, boom, now he has these deep philosophical, complex sentence combinations. That's not what's happening in this movie. It's a natural progression, especially based on what they established in the movie when you encounter Hulk for the first time.
And this really delves into this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and the rage connections in its own way. It's not the deepest. In fact, it was interesting to me to see some of the character arcs. One in particular, I don't think it's a spoiler to say this, Scourge the Executioner.
I was going to comment on that. So yeah.
His Carl Urban, of course, he's a very good actor, and it was like, oh,
hey there.
or Bones, or you know, he's a very good actor. He's been in a lot of great things. His character, on one level, is a total slime, an opportunistic slime. I still don't hate him. I don't hate. But anyway, right. I still like the character to an extent, and he's one of the weaker ones until you're noticing how he acts. And he does most of his acting, most of his arc is just through the eyes and through the body language. It's not, there's, you know, Although we do carry forward with the tradition of using accents to distinguish who's good and who's bad and who's an intelligent villain and who's the muscle. If you've got a nice
As
accent,
if the armor wasn't obvious.
well, I know it's like there's some part like, wow, subtle you are not.
But then again, if you came into a Thor movie
Yeah.
expecting subtlety, Thor's about as subtle as the hammer that gets destroyed.
But there are still some surprisingly subtle moments,
Right.
and I did appreciate that. And for me, that was kind of cool seeing, how Carl Urban was acting through body language, not necessarily through dialogue, and adding more to it. And it was very important for where it ends up going.
Yes, which actually, Scourge's story arc, Hulk, Bruce Banner's story arc, and Valkyrie's story arcs they really do exemplify less can be more. In this case, those three had arcs that were so tight and so well done that they rivaled the major story arcs of a lot of other movies that we've seen.
Now, to be very clear, I mean, please keep this in the context of superhero movies. We're not
Right.
talking, we are not talking about, this isn't,
Well, but some of the other non-comic book movies
no,
too.
it's okay. I mean, my that thought's running away. My point being, this isn't like the greatest thing you're ever going to see. So please bear
Right,
in mind,
not-
we are talking about, within the standards of this genre.
Right, but considering what a lot of other minor characters do.
Yes, I agree.
That-
Oh, and Valkyrie, speaking of which,
Yes.
Valkyrie was a lot more fun.
Yes, she was. Initially I was a little nervous about Valkyrie's character because I'm thinking, okay, they don't show a whole lot, which in a trailer is actually very good. You don't want to show too much.
Like Alpha.
Well, yeah. That's like, oh, I just feel like I've watched the entire movie in the 5-minute form. But anyway, with Valkyrie, when she first arrives in the movie, you are instantly given clues about her character. She's there for a purpose. Her character was very, very intentional.
Yes.
And that is, I was very relieved and encouraged when seeing how the character developed through the rest of the movie. And she's actually in it quite a bit. I think she's probably in the movie more than Hulk is.
Possibly. The thing that I was worried about with Valkyrie, that she was just going to come in as a token woman character, and that she wasn't really going to contribute, that she wasn't going to be important. Now, it is true that we could have written her out and that would not have changed a huge amount, but what she did add was important. The relationship that she brings, it brings a very distinct flavor, and she did a great job embodying the role of Valkyrie.
Yes.
You think she might get that tattoo removed, but, I appreciate it. I thought she did a great job, and it felt very much like walking in and seeing, like, oh, you are actually a tertiary character in this world when you put them all together. And yet she feels like she could be an individual. We could see more from her, and I'd love to see that.
Yes.
I would also like to see Lady Sif get some more development in that. Sadly.
Yeah, it might be a little too much of a spoiler.
Yeah, we'll have to let that one go.
Yeah.
Anyway, now let's slide over. You want to do, I guess we can tackle the main characters.
Yes, so on the side characters. Yeah, so main characters, starting off with, one of the minor main characters, minor main characters, Loki, starting off.
He's a main character.
I think he enters into the movie earlier this one than he did the previous movie.
I'm going to argue. Continue.
Anyway, yes. So with Loki's character, I like what they did with him overall. There are parts where that does remind me of when somebody is catching up to somebody else and the other person doesn't realize it. And so you have a lot of those moments coming in where you see growth and change between the characters. So it's basically saying that you've got, the characters feel like they've actually been doing things between the last movie and this movie. Mm-hmm. And so
you didn't do enough. I'll get on
that. Anyway, yes, that's on you. Yeah. But the Loki, and there are some parts where he could have maybe been a little bit improved, yes, but overall he fit very well within the story, fit very well tonally, fit very well in sort of building off of what Thor: The Dark World did very well. and continuing to evolve the relationship between Thor and Loki. And that's, yeah, so it was just a lot of fun. And so the other main character, Thor, of course, title character.
Oh, you want to tackle both Thor and Loki, and then I'll tackle both Thor and Loki?
Sure.
Just continue.
All right.
Continue.
All right. So Thor, again, he has a lot more growth, just from between the last time he appeared, which, last movie that he was in, and then this one. It shows that there's, again, more growth, that he's not a static character for the purpose of recycling the same jokes. He has a consistent personality that then allows him to basically have a lot of fun and invite the audience to laugh without him being stuck like some sitcom character mistakes have made in the past, where you have the same characters existing the same way for what should be a period of years, when normally you would expect to see some kind of growth. But, I think that's all I have for Thor and Loki. If I have anything else, I'll remember it.
You'll remember while I'm talking. So, yeah. So, Loki is actually my favorite Marvel character at this point. One of my favorites, for sure. We were at another viewing one time, and I was talking to someone else, and she asked, she's like, so who's your favorite character? And I said, they said, are we talking about the heroes or all the characters total? And she's like, well, let's just do all. And that's why I told her Loki. And this guy was standing there, he just, like, how typical. And I can't remember exactly, he just became very snide about how it was just typical and expected. And I was really annoyed, and I like, oh my goodness, I'm passing for normal! And walked away. So that was lots of fun. But anyway, point being, yes, one of my absolute favorite characters. It's partially a holdover from my love in the Norse myths. Usually, if there's a problem, Loki's either going to be brought in to solve it, or Loki caused it. And in that case, they still drag him in and make him help fix it. Now, I love the character very much, but I was a little bit perturbed with him in the beginning. I mean, he's been ruling for 2 years in Asgard. That's established. That's already been revealed.
Yeah.
You know. If you've seen Dark World in the end, you know that. And what has he done with his time? I'm very disappointed with the ambition. I mean, for crying out loud. I mean, on the one hand, like, yes, I see the emotionally vacuous wounds here, and clearly, like, just, what do you want? Which is part of Loki's character, to be fair. So there was that part of me, like, you had 2 years, I expected so much more from you, and, but still, I want more cunning. I love cunning. I love working in the shadows, and I love seeing characters do that. Shouldn't be the only one who has to. But the character, they do declaw him a little bit. The hard part is, yes, he's a trickster, and Thor really wants in right now. Our cat.
Yes.
Do you want to let him in while I'm finishing this up?
I think, or we can finish the video and then let him in.
All right, we'll do that.
He can wait a couple minutes.
He's knocking so sweetly on the glass. It's adorable. Anyway, going back, the difficult thing is he is a trickster. And you can't really trust that character. I still love the character, but you gotta be careful. And they do show some growth. He is used a lot for comic effect. And I had a lot of sympathy. The get help section made me, because that was funny. And you've probably seen that in the previews and the clips. And it's just, the funny thing with it is that the complaint was just that it was humiliating. It's like, I've actually been in that place. Like when I used to tutor the basketball team, and one of the guys decided that it would be a fantastic idea to grab me in a bear hug and spin me around. And because I usually wear like pashminas and stuff like that, the thing that he didn't realize is that I'm a little hard to hold on to. And so he flung me across the room. And that really actually hurt pretty bad. I hit the ground. I actually curled up into a ball. And it's like a lawn dart launched into space. It was not fun. But anyway,
yes.
All of that to say, they use him for a fair bit of comedy. But I would maintain it's like, no, they're not turning him into a hero. Please don't think that they're doing that. The character can absolutely be redeemed. I actually think all of them can. But there is a certain level of treachery that still has to be worked through. And just there was great acting all the way through, and some of it was
Yes.
subtle, and others was over the top. And Tom Hiddleston does a great job with that, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. As far as Thor, he's definitely changed from the first movie. Hi, sweetheart. Come here, baby girl. Oh, who's my baby? So Thor has changed a fair bit, but it feels more like he's loosened up. I don't feel like it's as much of a deep character change. And this arc that we've seen that was kind of starting in the first movie, in the first movie where he doesn't want the throne, and particularly in the second movie, we come to a resolution here, which is really kind of intriguing to see.
Yeah.
He has, oh, yes, do you want up? Anyway, and Chris Hemsworth plays him in a very charming and likable way. I love the argument scene between Thor and Hulk. That was really well done. And there's so many things I want to talk about specifically, but I'm not going to. Oh, yes, that's perfect. Anyway, and I just like where he winds up. There is an injury that happens to Thor that I still don't know quite how it happened with that much precision.
Just one?
The one that lasts.
Right, no, I know. I'm just saying you could pick out multiples and argue about which one is the most implausible.
Well, and one of the challenges I think in all the Thor movies is that the ones who are seen as deities, and I'm going to add Loki in there too, Thor and Loki and Odin, and apparently Frigga was the most fragile unless Malekith had some sort of magic.
Then again, the Dark Elves were like the scourge that were older even than this, other than this generation of Asgardian gods.
So they could have had something else. But anyway, and hell, they can take a lot of abuse and just keep getting up and getting up and getting up. There's some great secondary characters in this. It's got a lot of humor, and I guess wrapping up with Thor. He takes a lot of abuse, but this time you actually see him. He's not as stoic, which some people were upset that he wasn't going to be as stoic, but he is very human. And in all honesty, it was very similar. I mean, also, okay, I have to say this, as far as the comedy, people saying, oh my goodness, it's not serious enough, and have you read the myths? Have you read the myths? I mean, there are serious parts in them, but there's also a lot of comedy, some of it which is pretty, I'm talking about how in the movie they kind of drag Loki around and use him for comic relief, but they do that to him in the Norse myths as well. I mean, like when dealing with the giantess Skaldi, and they've got to make her laugh, or horrible things are going to happen. I mean, it's the princess who wouldn't laugh in a horrible, horrible way. And Loki fixes it by telling him to get a goat and taking a rope and attaching it to his testicles and attaching that to the goat, and then, hey, you can figure out what happened from there. That's not exactly highbrow humor, but it's part of the mythology. And similarly, like Thor frequently has these breakdowns in the mythology, like when Baldur dies, which I wish Baldur was in this.
Yes,
that would have been cool. But
well, maybe there's a chance for him to come back after some of the developments that did happen.
I would be annoyed at that point, because how many? I can't say this without spoiling it, but how many can keep coming back?
Or maybe not coming back, maybe weren't there at the time that it happened.
How is he going to show up with his true parentage?
Okay, that's going to be a bit hard to explain. But they did have some very good explanations for some other things that would have been otherwise hard to explain. For example, the one that I was...
Oh, wait. I have to tell one more thing from the Norse mythology.
Okay.
Like, for instance, when Baldur dies. All right, Thor... Well, it's not funny to... That's what it is. They don't like the dwarves in Norse mythology. I'm so sorry. Hold on, I've got to slow my brain. But anyway, in Baldur's myth, when his death and they're burying him, and Thor kicks a dwarf onto the funeral pyre, and then he has this. It's supposed to be comic, and it's very over the top. And in one version, the dwarf is fine. He doesn't burn to death. He's just ticked off that Thor kicked him into the funeral pyre. Yep. So anyway, continue. Anyway, there's a lot I could say about Norse mythology, but I won't.
Yeah, so going back to the movie. So one of the things that I saw from the trailers that I wasn't sure how they were going to pull off is Thor and Loki with guns. That just felt really wrong from the trailer. I'm thinking, is this going to work? How are they going to do it? And so we get to the scene where Thor and Loki have guns. And the build up to it, the scene itself, and then what happens shortly thereafter, it works.
It does.
It really works. They wove it into the point where it's there, and mainly because it's stretching both characters outside their normal comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
Part of being on the road through space.
I liked the brotherly relationship. They did feel like siblings,
Yes.
very much so. There's one joke that does show up the 3 times, and they have it a little different each time, and it involves throwing things at Loki, but it actually ends up with a rather heartwarming scene that I really enjoyed. Although speaking of weapons, yeah, the gun scene had me just a little worried as well, because like, but they've added blue to a number of the good guys' weapons, which I thought was just strange, because I don't know, I didn't quite care for that aesthetically. I liked it on Valkyries, but seriously, I mean, if you're going to have daggers, personally, it's like, I think black or silver works better.
Yep. Or you can just blame Disney throwing the color blue into all their heroes' weapons. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, you've got it with
well, at first
Thor is a lightning.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe it's for that, but I'm not entirely sure. This is one of my throwing knives, actually. So.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, point being.
It's sharp. Well, not so much sharp as dangerous.
It's sharp. I'm just being careful with it. Don't worry.
So that knife you keep sharp.
I keep all of my knives sharp. What are you talking about?
Okay, never mind. No, there are some other knives that need to be sharpened.
Oh, are you talking about the kitchen knives?
Yes.
Those are serrated. I haven't figured out how to sharpen those yet.
Anyway.
And the ceramic knives, I can't. I don't have a diamond.
I wasn't referring to the ceramic knives. I was just referring to some of the other knives that could be.
We need to have this discussion at another point, because I have no idea which knives you're talking about. My knives are sharp. Would you like to see?
Well, maybe not with the business end first.
Anyway, continue.
No, that was it.
That's all you have to say?
That was all I had to say.
What about Surtur?
Surtur's a character that I'm not as versed in the original mythology.
He's scary.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
yep.
And they made now please forgive my pronunciation. Muspelheim looks exactly like what you would expect, Hel.
Yeah.
Which, oh my goodness, no, I need to talk about Hela. There is one thing we do need to talk about with Hela. I mean, okay, first of all, on the one hand, Cate Blanchett did a fantastic job embodying this character, and I should probably put this down since I talked.
Probably, yes, because we don't want to have to run to the hospital tonight.
Do you want to keep your eyes, sweetheart?
Here, just give me the knife.
No,
give me the knife.
No, it's my knife. Mine.
Okay, you're not holding it anymore while you're getting excited talking. So, all right, you may proceed.
There is a change that they made to Hela. Now, I understand why we call her Hela instead of Hel, even though I think that's fantastic that she was called Hel. They make a change to her, and I'm like, what is it? What is it with making this new character this type? Now, I have
if you can't tell, it has come up in a few movies recently.
It has come up in a few. I have seen it recently, and I think, okay, first of all, I don't even know how to do this without spoilers. But anyway, it just bothers me, and I don't understand why they did it, except for the fact that they didn't want to recognize Hela's actual parentage from the Norse mythology, or even in the comics. Because, as you know from the comics and from the mythology, Hela is Loki's daughter, and she is the goddess of death and of the underworld. Now, the reason this is important is, you see, Loki tends to die. Just does. And he
ticks off the wrong people.
Yeah, it happens to him pretty regularly. But the reason isn't that he doesn't actually almost die, it's that his daughter is the queen of the underworld and keeps sending him back up. So...
Talk about friends in low places.
Yes, I'm not going to sing, though. Anyway, so that just... that threw me a little bit, because I don't know why they did that. And it's not exactly a secret that Odin was bloodthirsty. We got that loud and clear from the
first movie.
And you know that from the mythology. I mean, he drank from Mirmir's well of knowledge and sacrificed his eye to gain that. I don't know that happened in the comics, though. I don't know. But anyway, point being...
In the comics, I don't even think he had the eye patch. I thought he had both of his eyes.
I'm pretty sure he had the eye... I don't... Actually, it doesn't matter.
Anyway.
It doesn't matter. Point being, Hela is a ferocious character. Now, I am looking forward to the day when we can have a primary villainess when she is not just Smokerella sexiness. It's like, wow, I know what you were doing in exile. I mean, but this time
You gotta keep yourself busy somehow.
you do. You gotta stay busy.
After the, what, 5 millennia, whatever it's
Something
been.
like that. Now, there was Jeff Goldblum's right-hand woman who is a very
Yes.
sturdy gal. It's like, yes, I know that
She
figure.
was fantastic.
In her own quiet way. What word am I searching for here? It starts with a B. Trash. What? That was great. Anyway, but other than that, I did think she was ferocious. I did think she was scary. There is but in terms of her parentage, where she's coming from.
Hela, not the Goldblum's right-hand lady.
Hela.
Yes.
Goldblum's right-hand gal.
We know enough about her and we don't really need to know any more about her. She's just a side character who was great for the role that she was in, but didn't need any development. That would have been one of those things that would have been too much for this movie.
Yeah. But anyway, so she did fine. It is set up. There are some questions that I probably have to go back and look to see. But I did feel it was done carefully enough. I don't think it was careless. I think that it was set up pretty well. Now, I do want to touch on Ragnarok, because there have been a lot of people saying that the comedy doesn't work because we're talking about the end of the world.
It's the end of the world as we know it.
You sweet. Anyway, point being, I just dropped the thought.
Sorry, about the comedy being inappropriate for something called Ragnarok.
Yes. As far as comedy being inappropriate for something called Ragnarok, I've watched a lot of movies with Ragnarok in the title. Not all of them are serious. In fact, it was pretty much half and half. You know how we have a lot of movies that we put the word apocalypse in, which is a reference to Revelations.
Or Armageddon.
Armageddon, which is also
a
reference to Revelations.
Exactly.
So, this is probably the most bright and cheerful end of the world that I've seen for a while, but I didn't feel like it was that the comedy spoiled the seriousness of the mood. Now, if you go in here trying to look for, oh, Marvel is so bad with their bathos, and I hate it, and I don't like it, and I'm turning into Schmeagol. You will find things that you don't like, but all in all, I felt like this was well balanced. I hope I pronounced his name correctly. Taika Waititi. I love his stories. I've enjoyed What We Do in the Shadows. It's very funny, and I need to show that to you. But ultimately, I think that it is pretty consistent. You've got some different tones, a lot of variety in what happens. Mm-hmm. So much. But I liked being able to see the actors actually emote, and they express feelings, and not everything is said. It was, and they talked about how it was a buddy movie between Hulk and Thor. And it was. There was a fair bit of that, but I felt like it was more of the journey of Thor and Loki, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And it needed to happen.
Right. Of course, granted, for the ratio of time that was spent on it, that would almost be like saying that the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring movie, was about the tension between Frodo and Boromir. It wasn't really that long, and it wasn't that central to the movie.
Well,
and so I feel like that
it's also
is the same, or that's basically the same situation that we have between Hulk and Thor. It's a much more amicable relationship, but that's the ratio of time in this movie. So I'm saying that that's what it's centered around. That's not. I don't think that's quite accurate after having seen the movie.
And I think that they described it initially as a buddy movie. And then people were inferring that it was going to be between Thor and the Hulk.
Because that's all you saw in the trailers.
You saw a little bit with Loki as well. But I love family dynamics, and this definitely showed up. So all in all, we had a fantastic time. We're going to go see it again. We're taking my baby brothers. And
college baby brothers.
I know, they'll always be babies, just like dogs are always puppies. Even when they try to bite you.
Yeah, point taken.
So, yeah, definitely recommend it. And we'll talk to y'all later.
All right. Bye.
If I can find it.